How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. This is kind of a Festivus day with things to get off my chest, but I got to note something here. And I gotta actually credit John Andrasic, who is, you know him as Five for Fighting, the singer, because he made this point. Marco Rubio and his team at the State Department are sitting around the table with the Israelis and the Lebanese in their first direct peace talks between those countries in decades. For those of you who don't know the history here, in the division of the Middle East after World War II, the British controlled much of what they call the Levant, but the French got the Lebanese territory. I believe they got parts of Syria as well. The French did. The British got the what was then at the time called the Palestinian territory. It was renamed by the Roman Empire from Israel to Palestine to spite the Jews. And the British got Egypt, parts of the Arabian Peninsula, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. France controlled Lebanon. And most French territories have historically been terribly governed by the French. Many of them over time broke away. You know, if you want to find stable democracies on planet Earth, you look for former British colonies. Wherever there's a former British colony, you tend to find a stable democracy. Wherever you find a French or a Spanish colony, you tend to find third world kleptocrats. I mean, think about this. The Bahamas, Bermuda, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Kenya, India. You've got areas that were predominantly British in territorial control, and as a result of that, had pretty vibrant democracy spring up. But Algeria, Lebanon, the French didn't do a great job. Marco Rubio has Lebanon and Israel around the table. The French were not invited. Lebanon, the former French territory, the French subsidize, along with the Americans, subsidize the Lebanese government and army. The Lebanese didn't want the French invited. This is actually a very historic situation. It's a very big deal. If this were Hillary Clinton or John Kerry as Secretary of State, there would be wall-to-wall media coverage about this. They would be breaking into the coverage of Eric Swalwell and Ruben Galeo's press conferences and the victims' press conferences today to talk about the historic deal happening within the State Department as the Secretary of State did this. They would be nominating the Secretary of State for a Nobel Peace Prize for sitting Lebanon and Israel in a room together. This is a very significant deal. Lebanon and Israel have not sat at a table together to talk peace in a very long time. This is some of the audio from earlier today as Marco Rubio assembled them in a room at the State Department to talk. You can't hear it well enough. He's talking about the Lebanese people are victims of Iranian aggression, and this needs to stop, he says. The Israelis and the Lebanese agree. The Lebanese are willing to find peace with Israel and ally with Israel to oust Hezbollah from Lebanon. This is something that Lebanon could not and would not have done had the president and the Israelis together been able to undermine the Iranians, because the Iranians have for so long propped up and floated the Hezbollah operatives inside Lebanon. There is a southern river in Lebanon, south of which the Hezbollah forces are by treaty not allowed to go. It's called the Litani River. It's the longest river in southern Lebanon. It goes from the Bekaa Valley south and then southwest and then bends west into the Mediterranean Sea north of Tyre, the very old biblical city. And Hezbollah is not allowed to mass forces south of that line, and yet they have been. In fact, there are a lot of houses, if you go in southern Lebanon, south of the Litani River, a lot of the houses don't have southern-facing windows because they're not really houses. They're rocket launcher bases built by Hezbollah. And the Lebanese have agreed to allow Israel to come in and start bulldozing those houses, among other things. This is a very historic opportunity for Lebanon and for Israel. And again, Marco Rubio and Donald Trump did this. And the fact that you're not getting a lot of media coverage about it is expressly because they do not want the President of the United States or Marco Rubio, because of their partisan affiliations, to get credit for it. But it's a very big deal. And the president and Marco Rubio should both be applauded for doing what was necessary to be able to get these two countries that have not had peace talks in decades to sit at a table face to face with a common purpose of ending the scourge of Hezbollah inside Lebanon. That's a very big deal. And if it works, it will pay off dividends for the Israelis. It will pay off dividends for the Lebanese. Prior to the Lebanese Civil War, where that country collapsed with the Islamic fighters coming in, subsidized by Iran, that ultimately became Hezbollah, Lebanon was considered the Paris of the Middle East. It was a vibrant, beautiful city. And then war happened, civil war happened, it destroyed itself, and Iran was able to stretch itself and fund a terror regime inside Lebanon. And the Lebanese government has long lived in fear of that Hezbollah force and ultimately succumbed to Hezbollah as a force that could pull the strings as puppet masters of the Lebanese government. Israel has weakened Hezbollah so much through the pager attack and elsewhere. The Lebanese government is standing up on its own 2 feet and saying it's time to join forces with Israel to get rid of Hezbollah altogether. The Lebanese people do not like Hezbollah. They do not want Hezbollah. There's a significant portion of Lebanon that is Christian. They have been targets of Hezbollah and Islamic radicals for years. The government in Lebanon has done their best to protect them, and now the Lebanese government is willing to do what it must do to assert its freedom from the shadow of Iran, and that would not be possible but for Donald Trump and Marco Rubio. It is a very good and notable thing that we should all be paying attention to happening today, and pay attention to how much press coverage it does not get. Now, I want to move on to Podcastistan. So let me explain this to you. In 2015, I did a conference here in Atlanta. It was my Red State Conference, and I invited all the Republican presidential candidates. Every single one of them was coming, including Donald Trump. The night before the conference began was the Fox News debate, and the president had that exchange with Megyn Kelly where he suggested she was asking him a question the way she was asking because she was on her period, bleeding out of her eyes or her whatever. I was a Fox News employee. Megyn Kelly and I had a cordial relationship. I felt like I should, one, stand up for the company that I worked for, and two, that the president, Donald Trump at the time, candidate for office, if he came without apologizing, was going to be a massive distraction. And I would be doing a disservice to all of the other candidates if Donald Trump was allowed to come without apologizing. He was going to close out the event. And I called and talked to Corey Lewandowski, who not only said he would not apologize, nor would he clarify what he meant, but then took to social media to attack me. So I uninvited him. Now, I invited him, one, because it was a bad thing for him to do. Roger Ailes actually called me to tell me I had testicles of steel and promised me a job for life at Fox News. His promise was as good as the air it was breathed into. In fact, I got taken off the air at Fox News. Thereafter, I got paid every week by Fox to not do TV as they shifted towards Donald Trump. And I was fine doing it. I thought it was the right thing to do. I'd do it all over again in hindsight, knowing what I know now. I uninvited Trump because I thought he needed to apologize for that. I thought that was an indecent comment, and two, I thought it would be a distraction for everyone else. Well, it turns out that my uninviting him became the distraction to everyone else, and the whole story became me uninviting Donald Trump from this conference. Megyn Kelly was very critical of Trump. She then left Fox News thereafter. She gave an interview where she didn't feel like they really had her back, among other things. She moved to NBC. There's a clip circulating yesterday about how she was affirming trans kids at NBC. She ultimately left NBC. She became a podcaster, and she grew over time and affiliated with Donald Trump and has been one of the president's strong supporters in Podcastistan. Tucker Carlson, of course, was at Fox News and became a very prominent Trump advocate. He was one of the people who induced Donald Trump to pick J.D. Vance as his vice president, helped Vance build his career. J.D. Vance's son works for Tucker Carlson. Candace Owens was a regular at Turning Point USA events and a person who spoke on the trail for Donald Trump, defended Donald Trump, supported Donald Trump. And Alex Jones is Alex Jones. He's always been a nut. They've all turned on Donald Trump because of his invasion of Iran. None of them were actually real Trump supporters. In fact, between Megyn Kelly's prior thoughts on Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson's private thoughts revealed in the litigation against Fox News by, Dominion Voting. All of his text messages came out, how much he's always hated Donald Trump, that Donald Trump, everything he touches dies. He's ready for Donald Trump to disappear. We all need to move beyond Donald Trump. Those are Tucker Carlson's own unguarded words that came out in litigation. And these are his text messages back in 2020, 2021 to people about how much he hated Donald Trump. And yet in person would wrap his arms around Donald Trump and use Donald Trump to rise and gain fame. And when he was ousted by Fox News, it was Donald Trump to whom he looked to help him build up his reputation. It was Donald Trump to whom he looked to solidify his clout. He was able to get sponsorship from the Heritage Foundation and other conservative groups. Donald Trump helped Tucker Carlson. Donald Trump, to a degree, allowed Megyn Kelly to rehabilitate herself as a pro-Trump person. And now they've all turned on him because of Iran, except they're not really turning on him because of Iran. They're turning on Donald Trump because they're moving on to the next fight. And they sense that among their listeners and those who believe in them, that perhaps Iran is not as popular as it is. And by the way, I pointed out to the media repeatedly that President Trump's base is not divided over Iran. They are 95%, depending on whether you look at the CNN poll or the NBC poll or the ABC poll, supportive of what the president is doing. It's Podcastistan that is opposed. And much of Podcastistan is rumored to be getting money from somewhere: Qatar, Iran, Russia, something. I don't know where they're getting their money from. They got enough money on their own. They stand on their own. They're making a lot more money than me. But they have fundamentally shifted, and I don't believe that their shift towards Trump was any more authentic than their shift away from Donald Trump. They're blowing with the wind, and they've come out and attacked the president. Now the president has attacked them. But a new line was crossed today, I think, when Tucker Carlson's network put out a tweet defending Islam's support for Christianity. Remember, Tucker Carlson has had on a number of voices to claim that Islam is not persecuting Christianity. Tucker Carlson has had a whole lot of people on to, Churchill was the bad guy, Hitler was the good guy. Islam and Christianity are compatible. There is no persecution of Christians happening in Nigeria. A bunch of Christians were slaughtered in Nigeria on Easter. And you do understand that there is this operation. It is this post-liberal operation. Many of these people are aligned with Vladimir Putin's favorite philosopher, and it does make me wonder how much Russian money is involved in propping all this stuff up. To have Tucker Carlson come out in defense of Islam today and claim that Islam and Christianity are somehow compatible, or Islam loves Jesus and believes in Jesus. Islam does not believe that Jesus is the Son of God. In fact, Islam believes that that Jesus is a prophet who was not resurrected, was not born of a Virgin Mary, and is only returning to usher in the Mahdi. The people in charge don't want you to know this, but Muslims love Jesus. Islam reveres him as a major prophet and messenger of the Lord, believes he performed miracles, and states he'll return to earth to defeat the Antichrist. That's why Donald Trump's painting depicting himself as the son of God offended the president of Iran. It was an attack on his religion as well as Christianity. In Islam, you die if you convert to Christianity. You're put to death if you convert to Christianity. In Islam, the infidel is murdered, and Christians are the infidels. To see Tucker Carlson's network produce tweets in defense of Islam claiming it's somehow compatible with Christianity, it's not only a lie, it really does make me wonder what financial gain there is in Podcastistan these days. We got Woko Haram on the left and Woko Haram on the right, and they're all in cahoots to degrade Christianity and promote Islam. It's kind of wild to watch. And interestingly enough, they all think forcing people apart from Donald Trump is the way to break up the church and bring about Islam. I have a bone to pick with Brooklyn Bedding. So we got one of their mattresses. You know, I regularly try to, I shouldn't say regularly, 5 years or so to 8 years, change my mattress. So we got the mattress from Brooklyn Bedding. Got a king-size mattress. It's got, it's not one of the foam ones. It's got coils, and it is very comfortable. Well, then my daughter's like, hey, it's been a long time since I've got. We now have multiple Brooklyn mattresses in our house, and they're fantastic. They hold up. You know, they're designed, they're assembled in an Arizona factory. There are no middlemen. There are no gimmicks. Top-tier quality, honest pricing, and American craftsmanship for a better night's sleep, and they really are comfortable. We've got the great hybrid mattress, which, you know, Wirecutter says is fantastic. Go to brooklynbedding.com. Use my promo code ERIC, E-R-I-C-K, at checkout. Get 30% off site-wide. Not available anywhere else. brooklynbedding.com. Use the promo code ERIC, E-R-I-C-K, for 30% off site-wide. brooklynbedding.com, promo code ERIC. So I'm sorry. I got an email that Arby's wants me to know I haven't been in a while, and they want to give me a free classic roast beef with a $10 purchase, which is funny because this morning so I was on a phone with my team, and one of the guys says, I heard Arby's was advertised on the Master Channel. You should get Arby's to advertise on your show. I was like, I don't know that Arby's wants to advertise on my show. And then I was like, you haven't been in a while. I actually have been in a while, but I've used my wife's app. I've used my wife's password to put orders in because she's got herself dialed in there. But now I can go in and get myself a classic roast beef with a $10 purchase online or in store at Arby's. My son, by the way, is recovering from his wisdom tooth surgery, but he has basically lived on curly fries from Arby's for the last week. Poor guy. He finally had a real meal for the first time last night. Chicken fingers, mashed potatoes, and lima beans. So we're good to go. All right, I got to tell you about Swiss America. I want to check and see where the markets are right now, because with everything happening in the Middle East right now, we've got the Dow is up 240 points, S&P up 64, the NASDAQ up 375. Why? In large part, they've, by the way, wiped out the Iran losses. They wiped them out. Oil is down, which is remarkable. Brent is down to $94, down 4%. West Texas crude is down 7%. Swiss America has been educating people about markets, commodities, precious metals, the BRIC nations, how the war will play into the economy, and they've been giving people insights so that they can be ahead of the game with these insights. If you go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, you can click on the News and Views tab. You can subscribe to their podcasts or look for it on Swiss America Trading on YouTube. You can get their newsletter, and you can subscribe to get their Secret War on Cash report completely free. You just put in your information at SwissAmerica.com/Eric, and they will send you their completely free report, The Secret War on Cash, how the government is trying to control your spending, among other things, steering you to plastic. This applies to crypto as well. But also click the News and Views tab. Get their blog, get their podcast, stay ahead of your neighbors, stay informed with commodities, with global currency prices, and the like. SwissAmerica.com/Eric. SwissAmerica.com/ERICK. Welcome back. The president has put something of substance on social media. Allow me to read this, please. I am working very hard with our great speaker, Mike Johnson, along with Chairman Jim Jordan and Chairman Rick Crawford, to get a clean extension of FISA 702 through the House of Representatives this week. I'm asking Republicans to unify and vote together on the test vote to bring a clean bill to the floor. We need to stick together when this bill comes before the House Rules Committee today to keep it clean. I was a victim of the worst and most illegal abuse of FISA in our nation's history by radical left lunatics who lied to the FISA court to spy on my 2016 presidential campaign in their attempt to rig the election in favor of crooked Hillary Clinton. Their use of this instrument in the 2020 presidential election was even worse. When the dirty cop James Comey, the failed head of the FBI, went after me, he was using FISA Title I, the domestic collection, not FISA 702, the foreign collection, which needs to be extended today. While parts of FISA were illegally and unfortunately used against me in the Democrats' disgraceful witch hunt and attack in the Russia hoax, and perhaps would be used against me in the future, I'm willing to risk that as a citizen in order to do what is right for our country. Our military desperately needs FISA 702, and it is one of the reasons we have had such tremendous success on the battlefield, both in Venezuela and Iran. Since the first day of my already historic second term, my administration has worked tirelessly to ensure these FISA reforms are being aggressively executed at every level of the executive branch to keep Americans safe while protecting our sacred civil liberties guaranteed by our great Constitution. With the ongoing successful military activities against the terrorist Iran regime, it is more important than ever we remain vigilant, protect our homeland troops and diplomats stationed abroad, and maintain our ability to quickly stop bad actors seeking to cause harm to our people and our country. The fact is, whether you like FISA or not, it is extremely important to our military. I have spoken to many generals about this, and they consider it vital. Not one said, even tacitly, that they can do without it, especially right now with our brilliant military operation in Iran. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Congress is arguing over FISA, and it is up for renewal. It is regularly used by intelligence. So FISA stands for the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. And a lot of wire transfers are routed through the United States or over communication satellites the United States has access to, and we can snoop on those things. 60% of the intelligence that is in the president's daily intelligence briefings comes from FISA Section 702 surveillance. Warrants are not needed for Section 702. Let me explain the differences to you. If communication is routed between someone outside of the United States to someone inside of the United States, a warrant is needed in the FISA court to get access to that information because the information is presumed to go to an American citizen, and even if not, someone who is subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. So if you have information that is routed through telecommunications equipment that goes from someone abroad to someone in the United States, you have to have a court warrant, the FISA court. And as the president notes in his post, that system was gamed to target him in 2016 and 2020. However, FISA 702 is different. FISA 702 is communication originates outside the United States, going to someone else who is outside the United States. So the information transits either the United States or an ally's telecom network that we have access to, but it originates from someone outside the United States and goes to someone else outside the United States, neither of whom are American citizens. That information is not subject to a warrant. It's not subject to a court because it falls outside the purview of civil rights inside the United States. Here's one of the problems, though. In the past, on occasion, the information has gone from someone outside of the United States to someone else outside of the United States who is an American citizen, one or both of them. And the government, for a while, was capturing that information, targeting Americans' communications. In fact, according to the FBI itself, it used this data for warrantless searches on Americans 57,000 times in 2023. Reforms have been put in place. And one of those reforms is that if the FBI knowingly is targeting an American citizen abroad, you have to get a warrant. Generally, however, the data comes from a foreign person to a foreign person, and it just the information just transits an American satellite, an American wire, an American routing system, and the Americans can get it. And it is a extremely useful tool for intelligence gathering. In fact, as the president notes, without FISA, we would not have been FISA Section 702. We would not have been able to pull off the raid in Venezuela that captured Maduro. We would not have been able to pull off the wipeout of the Iranian regime on the first day. It's actually a very useful tool. Civil libertarians, however, hate FISA altogether. And the president is warning that there are votes to scuttle FISA, and Republicans need to stick together. The president wants a clean FISA vote. The president talks about a test vote. The test vote is the rule. So in the House of Representatives, when you pass legislation, it has to go through the Rules Committee. And when it gets to the Rules Committee sets the parameters by which you debate legislation in the House. It's very different from the Senate. In the Senate, there's unlimited debate until there are 60 votes to call the question. In the House, you set parameters, how long the debate will last, how many amendments people can add to it. Can people make amendments on the floor? How many minutes do the Democrats get to debate? How many minutes do the Republicans get to debate? And the rule for FISA would be it gets to go to the floor of the House of Representatives and no one can amend it. That's the rule for FISA. And the president calls this a test vote because the whole of the House has to vote on the rule first for how the debate's going to shape. And if the rule passes that no one can amend FISA from the floor of the House of Representatives, that's a pretty clear indication Republicans have the votes to pass FISA generally. That's what he wants. The test vote, he says, is for a clean FISA bill. That means no one's going to be able to change it. No one's going to be able to amend it. No one's going to be able to pull a stunt on the floor of the House of Representatives. That's what the president wants. We'll see if he can get it. By the way, I support FISA 702 renewal. I've got qualms about 701. 702 is actually a necessary tool within our intelligence arsenal. Again, 60% of the president's daily intelligence briefing is based on collection of wire data, whether it's communications, wire transfers of money, things like that. All of that is accessible, including internet data, different people's private chats that you think are private that comes through 702. And again, it only applies to communication that originates outside of the United States going to people outside of the United States. Doesn't involve anything that ends or begins inside the United States. That's 701. 702 is a useful version. I frankly favor 701 as well. There are enough safeguards, and the president forced reform on 701 to make it better and less likely to be abused. But 702 is a no-brainer. Why wouldn't we want to spy on communications from Iranians to Iranians? Why wouldn't we want to spy on communications from Iran to China or China to Russia or Russia to Cuba? Why wouldn't we want to be able to have access to that data? And you don't want to tie the courts up with warrants for this stuff. Ironically, that's what the Democrats want to do with ICE and Border Patrol is they want to tie the courts up with warrants. The reason we want FISA 702 is because otherwise every time you wanted to inspect the information, you have to go to court and get a warrant. It would tie up the courts. The Democrats want to tie up the courts with warrants for deportations because they know it'll slow down the deportations. While all of this is happening, by the way, Senate Majority Leader John Thune has said that there is a plan in place, that there are rumblings that Sam Alito may retire this summer. Sam Alito apparently had a health situation a couple of months ago after a Federalist Society meeting, and he is getting old. Clarence Thomas as well is getting old, and frankly, Thomas is gambling with control of the Senate on being able to retire. I don't want them to pull a Ginsburg. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, of course, thought that she could hold on until Trump lost, and she didn't, and that's why Amy Coney Barrett's on the Supreme Court. I'm deeply concerned with Clarence Thomas. If there's a medical event, God forbid something happens to Clarence Thomas, and the Republicans either lose control of the Senate or lose the White House, that brings us back to a 5-4 majority on the Supreme Court. And who's in the 5? John Roberts and Kavanaugh and Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett. And Sam Alito is probably going to go. Now, you got to keep in mind that both Kavanaugh and Barrett were confirmed in, I think, September or October of election season. So the Republicans don't need a lot of time. The question is, can the president vet someone to become a nominee for the United States Supreme Court? And I got to tell you, I'm deeply concerned about the president being so hostile to the Federalist Society. The Federalist Society has spared us many bad picks and given us many good picks. Sam Alito was a Federalist Society pick. Clarence Thomas was a Federalist Society pick. Neil Gorsuch was a Federalist Society pick. Amy Coney Barrett was, in fact, a Federalist Society pick. And for all the antagonism about her, because, frankly, she's not a team player, but she's with you 90% of the time, she's a good pick. You know who wasn't a Federalist Society pick? John Roberts. John Roberts, the Federalist Society, told George W. Bush that they could do better than John Roberts, but George W. Bush wanted someone to replace William Rehnquist as Chief Justice, and he wanted to throw a bone to the Democrats by not having an antagonistic hearing process. The Democrats liked John Roberts. They roughed him up in the hearing, but everyone knew he was going to get the votes. The filibuster still existed at the time. John Roberts was not a Federalist Society pick. The Federalist Society, most of the major judges who have given Donald Trump wins have been Federalist Society picks. In fact, a 3-judge Court of Appeals panel for the District of Columbia has beaten down Judge Boasberg today. Judge Boasberg has been told he must shut down his hearings investigating the president's deportation of Abrego Garcia because of national security concerns. They trump his hearing, and he's been ordered today to shut down his investigations about deportations by a Court of Appeals. The judges who told Boasberg to shut down his hearings, Federalist Society picks. The Federalist Society judges tend to be the most solid conservative, reliably conservative judges. And I'm afraid the president, led by a bunch of grifters instead of the Federalist Society, going to have people whisper in his ears, probably people who have bribed people to whisper in the president's ear to get on the court, and they may be bad. Some of these people are paying off those close to Donald Trump so that they'll whisper in his ear and tout them. And they have poisoned the president towards the Federalist Society because there are the grifters want to grift and they want to be able to be the pick. They want to be the clout. They want to be the guys the president turns to. If you're in the Federalist Society, you've got a clear track record of being conservative. You've got a clear track record of principle, and you're not going to go wobbly. And we need people of principle who aren't going to bend their view of the rule of law towards who's in the White House. We need them to be consistent. It's good for business. It's good for civil rights. It's good for the country. And if they're in the Federalist Society, it's good for conservatives. But the grift and corruption that surrounds this president, and frankly, it is true. It's grift and corruption. And it's a bunch of people who think they get rich off of Trump. They have access to Trump, and they're willing to get other people to pay them under the table to get them access to Trump. It's gross. It degrades Donald Trump's presidency, and I don't know that he realizes it's happening. Maybe he does. We got to have a good conservative warrior to replace Sam Alito. Now, there are some great people out there. There are some really good people out there. Judge Ho on the Fifth Circuit is fantastic. Frankly, I don't think that my friend Judge Dillard here on the Georgia Court of Appeals would want it, but he would be a great pick for the Supreme Court. We will see where this goes. By the way, Mike Lee, I would note, on the United States Senate, he would be one, and Ted Cruz, they would be phenomenal picks for the United States Supreme Court. There are some great picks out there, but we got to get Alito and Thomas to realize it's probably time to retire. I am worried about the U.S. Senate. I really am worried about control of the Senate. And if the Senate goes to the Democrats, even if Donald Trump remains, there's no way to get a conservative nominated and passed for the Supreme Court. So I hope that Thomas and Alito both will see the way the wind is blowing and maybe decide that now is the time to retire and let the president get some good young picks who can outlast the Democrats. The president just made 2 endorsements you should know about, particularly those of you in Georgia. He's endorsing Houston Gaines for Georgia's 10th congressional district. That is Houston's phenomenal, the best guy for that district. That is where Mike Collins, who's running for the Senate. That's his district. Houston Gaines would be tremendous. Great for the president to actually pick the best in that race. And in the 1st congressional district in Georgia, that's Buddy Carter. He's running for the Senate as well. So you got Mike Collins and Buddy Carter, 2 congressmen. They're running for the Senate in Georgia. Derek Dooley, the 3rd candidate in that Senate race. And so their seats are now open. My friend Jim Kingston, whose dad, Jack Kingston, used to be the congressman out of Savannah, is running in the 1st congressional district. And Jim is a great guy. And again, the president has made today 2 fantastic picks. Jim Kingston in Georgia's 1st, Houston Gaines in Georgia's 10th. They'll be tremendous assets to the U.S. Congress. Sharp guys, both of them. I know them both. They're good guys. I'm kind of encouraged to see the president picking these guys for endorsement. Meanwhile, United's CEO of United Airlines is floating the idea of merging with American Airlines. Now, I greatly dislike American Airlines. I've never had a good experience flying on American. I've got some friends of mine who love it. It's like the guys who love Southwest. So why now with Southwest you've gotten rid of your uniqueness? Why would I fly you when you don't even have first class? Now, I'm a Delta guy. Delta's a little pricier. In fact, that's my chief complaint against Delta these days is they keep raising their prices and going for premium stuff. They're pricing the middle class out of being able to fly Delta, forcing the poor middle class onto Spirit and Frontier where you take your life into your hands. But I love Delta. Delta's great. Delta's been great to me. It's no NetJets, but I can't afford NetJets, so I fly Delta. And even if I fly economy, I fly so much they upgrade me to first class. United and American merging would have 40% of all air travel in the United States would be from that merged airline. That sounds like a major antitrust violation. I can't imagine that the Trump administration is going to let this happen. I don't think the courts will let it happen. I think the public will be outraged by it. It would drive up prices if you consolidated that much. It just basic economics. It would drive up prices. That can't be allowed to happen. Now, what can be allowed to happen is you going to Renai to look at their rebates. If you go to talkingtankless.com, you can see the button that says Find a Pro to yank your tank and put in a tankless water heater. But if you scroll down the page, you can see Save $500 on a Renai tankless water heater, and you click to redeem. And when you do, it'll go to the rebate page. You got to create an account. And then you'll find the Eric Erickson rebate, and it'll ask you for the code, and you put in Eric, E-R-I-C-K. Here's the terms. This is for homeowners only, not businesses. And you got to have your tank bought and installed by June 30th, and you will get a $500 rebate from Renai. You know I love my tankless water heater, and now they're giving you a $500 rebate so that you can and they're already reasonably priced. Now they're even more reasonably priced with a $500 rebate. Phenomenal device. You get hot water forever, an endless supply of hot water from Renai with a tankless water heater. Yank your tank today. Go to talkingtankless.com, scroll down to the rebate button. You'll need to find the Eric Erickson rebate and put in Eric as the code to get in.